Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, the World Bank suspends work with Tunisia over a spike in racist attacks fueled by an inflammatory speech by President Kais Saied that demonized black Africans. The violence and abuse that ensued has seen some African countries scramble to fly their citizens out of Tunisia. Also, the opposition PDP party leads peaceful protests in Nigeria's capital in condemnation of the Electoral Commission's handling of last month's flawed presidential election. And as here in France, there's excitement over the annual tradition of following which restaurants win the top rating. There is a gastronomic universe beyond the Michelin stars. We hear from a South African top chef about her appreciation of the continent's finest foodie offerings. But first, the World Bank is suspending future work with Tunisia over a spike in racist attacks, arbitrary arrests and evictions targeting black Africans. The unrest was triggered by inflammatory statements by President Kais Saied last month. The African Union described his language as racialized hate speech. The US has voiced concern about his comments as well. Other African countries like Mali, Ivory Coast and Guinea have raced to fly out some of their citizens stuck in Tunisia. Sam Bradpeace tells us more from Senegal.
Ivory Coast, Guinea and Mali have all begun repatriating citizens from Tunisia, and now Senegal says it will do the same. The Senegalese Foreign Ministry say that no Senegalese citizens have been caught up in the racist violence which has been gripping Tunisia since this crisis began. But reportedly, more than 100 Senegalese have contacted the embassy in the country asking to be expatriated. Attacks on sub-Saharan migrants as a whole have spiked in Tunisia ever since the country's president gave an incendiary speech in which he said migration was part of a plot to replace the Arabic population of Tunisia with an African population. A claim, a conspiracy theory, which authorities in Tunisia deny is racist.
Tunisia is globally known for being a welcoming country, and many civilizations have passed through Tunisia. To accuse us of racism makes no sense. It's embarrassing.
Here in Senegal, civil society groups have said they would work with the government to bring any concerned migrants back in a timely manner. This crisis has had a rare unifying effect in a country where political tensions are building ahead of next year's election.
Sam Bradpeace there for us. Now, there were peaceful protests in Nigeria's capital on Monday as the main opposition party decried the Electoral Commission's handling of last month's controversial presidential election. Called INEC, the commission says the vote was won by the ruling APC party's candidate. But the PDP and third-place runner-up in the polls, the Labour Party, have rejected the outcome. Laura Berstecker has more.
Demanding another vote, hundreds of Nigerians protested peacefully outside the Electoral Commission headquarters in Abuja to challenge the results of the presidential election. A show of force by opposition leader Atiku Abubakar, who vowed to bring the case to court.
We have the right to protest under the Constitution. It doesn't stop us from going to court, the fact that we are protesting.
At least 5 political parties have challenged the outcome of Nigeria's presidential election, saying delays in uploading and publishing the results raised suspicions of vote tampering. International observers also reported a range of technical and logistical issues, mostly stemming from failures in the electronic transmission of votes, but found no clear evidence of fraud. Yet opposition supporters appeared determined to push for a rerun.
That was not an election. That is why we're here today, to give a petition, to give the mandate back to Atiku Abubakar, because he's the rightful person that won this election.
Opposition parties now have less than 2 weeks to build their case and file a legal challenge. In order to overturn the results, they must prove the Electoral Commission broke the law, a daunting task, especially as no presidential election has ever been overturned in Nigeria.
Manhunt's currently underway in Mauritania after 4 religious extremists escaped from a prison following a fatal shootout in which 2 guards were killed. Roads around the prison in Nouakchott were closed after Sunday night's breakout. 2 of the missing prisoners are thought to have been sentenced to death, whilst the other were awaiting trial on charges of membership of a terrorist organisation. A vehicle thought to have been used by the group was reportedly found in the northeastern part of the city on Monday. The Archbishop of Kenya's Anglican Church has said that it will no longer follow England's lead. Several archbishops of the global Anglican Communion have said that they no longer consider England's Archbishop of Canterbury their leader because of a change backed by the Church of England to allow priests to marry same-sex couples. Homophobia remains widespread in Kenya. There's been a fierce backlash against the Supreme Court's recent order to the government to allow the creation of gay rights associations. Bastien Renouy reports.
England is no longer going to be the leader of the Anglican Communion, said Kenyan Archbishop Jackson Ole, after the church agreed to bless gay couples. This is yet another statement after 10 days of tensions towards the LGBTQ community here in Kenya. This Sunday, First Lady Rachel Ruto announced the organization of national prayer against homosexuality. She said, "We should not even try to talk about LGBTQ. This is a conversation we should not even have in our country, because accepting it is like throwing our morals into the dustbin." This is a rather unsurprising statement, given that her husband, President William Ruto, said on Friday that as a God-fearing man, even if he respects the court, Kenyan religion, traditions, laws and customs cannot allow a woman to marry another woman and a man to marry another man. He added that it will happen elsewhere, it will not happen in Kenya. And for once, the opposition shares his opinion, as Raila Odinga also criticized the court ruling. Several MPs also said that they are in favor of a new law preventing the creation of such organizations. The Attorney General already announced that the government will appeal the decision. So for LGBTQ right defenders, the announcement of the court is a bittersweet victory after more than 10 years of legal battle, since in Kenya, same-sex sexual relations are still punishable by 14 years in jail.
Well, here in France, there's been a lot of excitement over star watching. That is, following which of the top restaurants in the country are rewarded by the Michelin Guide. This year, only 29 can boast those coveted 3 stars, but fine dining, as defined by the Restaurant Guide, can be pretty exclusionary. And some chefs have complained of a lack of representation in the scene. Well, gastronomic innovation and excellence from Africa does not rely on reference to France. And earlier I asked top South African chef Mambato Molefe, owner of Emma Zolwini in Cape Town, how relevant the Michelin ratings are to her.
Watching the Michelin star restaurants being announced has always been an interest as a person within the food scene, but in terms of whether it's relevant within our restaurants in Africa, it hasn't been as yet.
Now, tell us a bit about the restaurant that you run. Your team is all black, all female. Is that choice a deliberate one, or just who you happen to have around you, the kind of people that you find yourself working with in the course of your career?
I think it is a deliberate choice, and I think it's something that you have to be sometimes within South Africa to sort of understand in terms of having a restaurant within a mostly white male dominated industry within Africa itself, and having a team that's all black, that's young, and that's mostly female has been sort of an objective for me, not only to inspire young black creators and chefs within the country, but just to create a space for us to excel and thrive.
And how does that translate into the actual food that you prepare? Is it inspired specifically by traditional ingredients, traditional recipes, or do you come at it from a position of a blank slate, and anything that inspires you from at a given moment where you find yourself is the direction you allow yourself to go in?
So Our food at Emazulwini is inspired mainly by traditional dishes. We always say that we try to balance between the fact that we are in a modernizing and globalizing world, whereas we want to truly represent who we are and the food that we eat. And my mom was always complaining about having to be credited and being paid for her recipes to be used at the restaurant. But the food that we mainly cook at the restaurant is traditional Zulu cuisine, which is a tribe within the South African region.
And do you think that there is enough appreciation of South African food, both on and off the continent?
I think so. I think there's enough appreciation for African food in general throughout the continent because food has played such a role for people who don't have the ability to travel to sort of experience different places and different spaces.
And it's appreciated within that fine dining space, within the kind of culinary culture within South Africa.
I think lockdown has sort of changed the restaurant scene within South Africa. I think the last time we had any form of restaurant awards was in 2019, which was pre-lockdown, and coming out of COVID and having so many Black chefs sort of seeking to represent true, authentic African cuisine, we've seen a lot more appreciation and a lot more recognition of African voices and Black voices and just African food in general.
So Mabato Molefi there speaking to me a little earlier on, the owner of Emazulwini in Cape Town, and I'm hoping that at some point I will get a chance to check out her work myself. But unfortunately, that's where we're going to have to leave it now for Eye on Africa. Thanks for joining us. Do so again. Take care.